I'm here at the Federal Canadian Leadership Convention, sitting here with a famous Canadian radio host, Brian Lilley. Thank you, Brian, for your time.
Pleasure to be here, Reginald.
You know, right now we're looking at Canada after the Trudeau administration. You know, we're talking 2019. Some people have been throwing the number out. We're talking $120 billion on top of the already $650 billion.
Look, the numbers from the Finance Department, this isn't the Parliamentary Budget Office, this isn't the Conservative Research Bureau, the Finance Department put out a report just before Christmas saying that unless we change the fiscal course we're on, we're looking at deficits through to after 2050. So if we just stay on the path we're on, we don't have to do any more extra deficit spending, we just stay on the path that Trudeau's put us on, we won't be in a balanced budget situation until 2050. That is insanity. That will kill the economic hopes of this country. So, you know, his idea of the budgets will balance himself, I'm sure he actually believes that. I don't think that that was a glib mistake. He thinks if the government spends enough, the economy will grow. Well, we've been doing an awful lot of spending. The economy isn't growing the way that they said it would. It is an infrastructure program that is not really infrastructure. So much of it is social infrastructure or green infrastructure. And what is that? Well, sometimes it's a rec center. Sometimes it's paying for daycare spaces. Most Canadians, when they think of an infrastructure program, think of roads, bridges, airports, seaports. Trudeau's selling everything as a way to get the economy moving because we can move our goods to market faster. That'll create jobs, that'll create economic activity. I'm sorry, but a daycare space doesn't do that.
What about the fact, you know, I actually read through the Auditor General reports here in the province of Ontario, the 2015, 2016. We're looking at the situation in Ontario that the mining industry is not being properly capitalized on. What is your thoughts on the federal and the provincial government working together for allowing that to create more jobs?
Well, the entire Ring of Fire issue has been badly mishandled, and there have been attempts by the previous Conservative government and the Liberal government under Dalton McGuinty to try and get things going. It never materialized. I think there's a whole host of reasons for that, but we are sitting on a pile of natural resources that people want around the world. There's no reason that we shouldn't be capitalizing on them. Whether it's minerals or diamonds or what have you, we should be capitalizing on that because it will create jobs for people of Ontario, it will create economic benefit. Most of this is either on Crown or Native land. And so the First Nations bands that are dealing with poverty right now could be dealing with an awful lot of money. You know, and what's the best social program? Is a job. A lot of them are going to get hired. Think of the northern Alberta experience before the oil sands were really developed. Same sort of situation. There's not a lot of economic activity going on. The oil sands come in, that's developed. What's the number one employer of First Nations in Canada? The oil sands. Couldn't we be doing something similar in northern Ontario instead of people feeling like they have to rely on handouts, instead of people feeling like they're trapped in poverty? They'd love to do something for their community, but activists get in the way, bureaucrats get in the way, red tape gets in the way. You know, get all sides working together and fix this.
That's awesome. What about the veteran issue in regards to, the new charter is a lot better than the old charter. Being a veteran myself.
Hold on, did you just say that?
Yes, I did. The reason why is because I have a scooter that was bought by Veterans Affairs when the Federal Conservative Party was in power. I have my medical pension. Plus, I'm on earning loss, so I'm on total permanent impairment allowance. However, it needs to be tweaked. We need to go back to the lifetime pension.
Are you talking about the new charter that came in around 05, 06? That's better than the old one?
Yes, it is.
So I was around covering Parliament when that happened, and I remember the veterans activists were asking for what they got. And it was a very nonpartisan effort. Albina Guarnieri, Liberal MP from this area, from Mississauga, was the Veterans Affairs Minister at the time. She has no malice towards veterans at all. And I know people love to play this, Liberals hate veterans, Conservatives love them, no, Conservatives hate them. No, my experience is all political parties want to look after the veterans. And one of the most outspoken advocates used to be New Democrat MP, Peter Stauffer. He's no longer an MP, lost his seat. But I watched as the Liberals under Paul Martin approached Stephen Harper and the Conservatives, approached Gilles Duceppe and the Bloc, approached Jack Layton and the NDP and said, here's what the veterans want. Can we agree on this? And they all agreed, and it passed unanimously, and everyone was congratulatory, but you're right, it needs tweaked. There were problems. I don't think there was any malice on the part of the Liberals who were in power when it kicked off, or the bureaucrats. I don't think there was any malice on the part of the Conservatives over their 10 years, or the bureaucrats that worked under them. But you've dealt with these bodies, you know how cumbersome and bureaucratic it can be. It needs tweaked, it needs fixed, but there are fights among different veterans advocates groups as well. Some want to go back completely to the old system. I understand the calls and why the calls were there for the one-time buyout, but you know, I understand also the idea that a lot of these guys coming back from tours of duty, young, banged up, messed up. You know, look at the guys that I know that have been addicted to opioids as part of their treatment, and all of a sudden you're handed that much money. You're buying a big truck and you're blowing it on partying, and then you're left out in the lurch. Should we be protecting people from themselves? Well, that's a debate, but at the end of the day, don't we want our veterans looked after? So I agree, tweak. There were improvements made in the new charter. Don't throw it all out, but let's tweak it.
And I also, one thing that I'm very big about, we need to return the lifetime contributions to the younger veterans. They need to be provided with that for the rest of their life and not a lump sum payment, because as you were saying, what's happening, and at the same time, you know, I sat down with retired Major Mark Campbell, and here is a gentleman, his wife was also in the military, and the Veterans Affairs turned to D&D turned to his wife and said, we're going to kick you out of the military, you have PTSD. Not because of us, because of what happened to your husband. And you can't explain that, and that is wrong. Yeah. That needs to be corrected.
And one of the things that really needs to be fixed is the handoff from being the responsibility of D&D to being the responsibility of Veterans Affairs. And I know there were some mess-ups in the latter days of the Harper administration on the Veterans file, but I really think that Aaron O'Toole had his heart in the right place and was making strong moves. And I hope Kent Hare is able to continue with that. I haven't talked to him about the file, but I hope he's able to continue with that. This should be the most nonpartisan file there is. I'm really disappointed that over the last 10 years, people have been making it more partisan.
What's your thoughts right now as we're sitting at this convention? What do you want to see that the Federal Conservative Party, as they come out of here, the next leader, what kind of pathway do you want that person to take?
Unified Conservative Party, somebody that's willing to bring in all sides. You walk up and down the exhibitors booths here, and you've got all kinds of causes and activist groups that are here, from parental rights groups to flat tax groups to pure libertarian to social conservatives. They all belong in the tent. Patrick Brown in Ontario has had a problem because he decided to start shooting inside his own tent and telling certain members of his coalition that they weren't welcome. That's a bad move. Stephen Harper did a good job of keeping a disparate coalition together. The next leader has to be able to do the same. Does it mean that every group gets everything they want? No. But as Ronald Reagan famously said, someone that disagrees with me 20% of the time is my 80% friend, not my 20% enemy.
Thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Thank you.